Okay, I'm back with another one. This is the one that I say the one. What I noticed is, like I said in the one that I dropped yesterday, I've been, and yes, yesterday, I've been dropping these videos into Notebook LM to have them feed the information back to me. And I didn't recognize it in almost all of them, probably since the one that I posted about the Hendrix method. I think that was the reason I posted it because I realized the one I was posting that day that was new, I had talked about it again in all of them. Excuse me. Um, so in saying that, all of the ones I've dropped since in the past week, I've talked about the metagame and how to play it. Am I going into a part two of the part one that I had done? Hadn't done it yet, because what I found out was when I after I done the part one, everything that I thought I would talk about in part two, a lot of it found that it came up in every video that was successive. Same thing here. The metagame and how to play it, and forgive the reflection. That's something that I'm not fond of. Don't know how to fix, but we'll figure something out about that next time. Guess it's a glasses thing. I know it's a glasses thing, but I guess it may just be something I just have to suffer from. So I'll be jumping through a few different tabs here, but this starts with so I found this podcast from this guy named Paul Saros. He's the Chief Innovation Officer at Cedar Grove Capital Management, and he has this podcast back that stopped at the end of 2024. So yeah, I guess it just wrapped. He just may not have brought it back yet, but he may not be bring it back at all. I can't say. Um, but the episodes I found were from 2023. One was called Slowly at First, then All at Once, and then the second was called Winter is Coming. I was led to the Winter is Coming from Slowly at First. He talked about it directly in there because it led into it. So I guess Slowly at First, then All at Once probably came after. Yeah, I think that feels about right. So Winter is Coming probably was at the beginning of 23 because it was based off of a article he dropped in September of 22, I think, and then slowly at first and all at once maybe came later in 23. I don't know exactly when. But yeah, so I told Chad I'm in the middle of a podcast titled Winter is Coming. Was led to it from another episode titled Slowly at First and All at Once, both from Paul Seros from the Investors Corner, CIO at Cedar Grove Cap Management. I said, I believe you can find both podcasts online. Needed to do so for added context. And then listening to the first one, I had sparked some ideas that I was very curious about. I wanted to see like what my thoughts lay. Like I wanted to compare as a thing I've been doing with Notebook LM. So the things that I've been listening to, when I listen to a podcast specifically, like something that I can get on YouTube, or if I read an article, I feed it into Notebook LM to reinforce it, right? And also to make sure that what I'm catching from it is also being caught by, right? To make sure I'm not making something up. And then from there, pull it back in. Then I take my insights, do what I'm doing, feed it to ChatGPT. Normally, either put those thoughts here, or if I put them in a voice note, I'll feed that to Notebook LM to make sure that what I'm actively thinking from my own mouth is also of correctness, right? It follows some logic. And then have this kind of conversation with ChatGPT, bring it here, whatever that process may be. But I'm reinforcing 3, 4 times while learning it. Excuse me. So yeah, I go on to say, yeah, episode sparked some thoughts around what we've been discussing and building on recently in other chats that I took a voice memo of me talking through. First, I want to see what you think about what Paul points out in both episodes so we can open a dialogue around it. And I'm going to share the transcript of the voice memo after this so we can discuss that too. And the reason I go into reading, it may seem frivolous for me to read the like my prompts to ChatGPT. But if you hear how I prompt ChatGPT, you understand so many different things. But if nothing else you get from it, you understand how to interact with AI to get real life high level results, right? Okay, so hear this. This is an opening of a chat, right? Now here's the thing through it. I've been using it for so long that it knows me at a level I put, and it's also so it's the tool, my time with it, and me, right? Resources, leverage, and equity. I got equity in, I got leverage, and it's a resource. I know how to use the resource. Well, I'm able to get massive impact. Make sense? So when I say I'm in the middle, this is what I say. I'm in the middle of a podcast titled, my podcast episode titled "Winter is Coming." I was led to it from another episode titled "Slowly at First and All at Once." Both are from a man named Paul Seros on his podcast, The Investors Corner. He's the CIO at Cedar Grove Capital Management. I believe you can find both podcasts online. Please do so you have that added context for where I'm about to go. Listening to the Slowly at First episode sparked some thoughts around what we've been discussing and building on recently in other chats that I took a voice memo of me talking through. First, I want to see what you think about what Paul points out in both episodes so we can open a dialogue around it. And I'm going to share the transcript of the voice memo after this so we can discuss that too. Simple, clean, easy. Chat replies, Paul Sero's podcast episode, Winter is Coming, and Slowly at First and All at Once delve into significant economic and market trends. In Winter is Coming, Sero discusses potential challenges in the housing market, particularly focusing on the risk of negative equity. He highlights concerns about homeowners owing more on their mortgages than their properties are worth, a situation that could have widespread economic implications. Let me just stop there. No, I won't stop there. Slowly at First and All at Once references a quote from Ernest Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises, illustrating how changes can accumulate gradually before accelerating rapidly. Sero applies this concept to market dynamics, suggesting that investors should be mindful of subtle shifts that could precede significant market movements. These discussions underscore the importance of vigilance and adaptability in investment strategies, emphasizing that both gradual developments and sudden shifts can profoundly impact markets. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on these insights and discuss the transcript of your voice memo to explore these themes further. I don't know if I'm going to read through this entire transcript of the voice memo. I'm not going to. It's long. It's a 12-minute voice memo. Right, a real stream of consciousness. So I'll just read chat's reply. Yeah, I copied the transcript word for word. So it's 12 minutes of stream of consciousness word for word, just given to ChatGPT. No, I pulled the context that I gave it before for a reason. Because I could have just told it, hey, I could have even given it the most basic context. We've had we've been building upon this, or hey, this is what I was just thinking. And it knows me well enough that it's going to build from it. But with that added context, I steer where we're headed from beforehand, so I don't have to come in and be like, oh, well, this is what I was looking for. It doesn't know that. How can it? It doesn't know that. I thought I figured how I may be able to. Nope, not what I was looking for. You're essentially laying out a blueprint for a new kind of economic engine, a self-sustaining cycle of wealth within the Black community that flips gentrification on its head. Instead of outside investors coming in, extracting wealth, and displacing people, your model keeps ownership, investment, and circulation within the community. The migration support platform ensures that people aren't just displaced, but are given opportunities, access, and advancement. So now we're talking about alternative capital, right? Without a real introduction there, because like I said, I didn't go into my own voice memo, but the voice memo was about alt cap as a response to. So the point of my voice memo was, hey, as I'm listening to this, I know that I'm going to bring this to chat. And I know even more because I think I'd already checked to see if I could take the podcast and give them their Notebook LM. And some stuff you can't take for whatever paywall or whatever. For whatever reason, it's just not accessible. It's not allowed. So I couldn't get Notebook LM to feed through the information. So I'm like, well, okay, how about instead of how I would normally go, feed it to Notebook LM, listen to it, get my thoughts, feed my thoughts back in, and then do that loop. Instead, I'll do my thoughts, feed my thoughts in, and then have it connect to the episode, because chat can at least access the episode information, right? Bring that context in, and then we can do the loop. So now this is the loop. This is me adding, as intelligent insanity goes, this is the iterative process. This is me doing the iteration, right? A new input, new information has come about, new sensory. There's another word I'm thinking of. It'll come to me. But there's new data has been brought about to put into the, okay, so now we have to process again. And that's what we're doing. We're recalibrating, right? To make sure that the vision still aligns. Because the information we received is not different than what we already knew or believed. But it's been presented to us in a way by an individual at a time, right? This is almost 2 years old, at a time where you have to say, okay, one, is this individual this is talking about media literacy, right? Is this individual speaking from a perspective of bias, right? And I say bias as far as time matters a lot. Time and how you find something matters a lot for bias. The thing about the fake news media, as I was saying yesterday, it's still news, right? The thing about news is it's recent, it's current. That's what makes it news. It doesn't have to be true. Nobody said the news has to be true. It just has to be new. Well, new information, again, misinformation is still information. So then you question, okay, not does it connect to what not is it going to confirm what I already believe, but was I led to it based on me looking to question, to scrutinize what I already believe, right? Me always wanting to confirm that I'm not, because I fear being wrong so much, right? That I need to make sure that I'm right. I don't fear being wrong for the judgment. I don't care. I don't care about the public perception. I'm not worried about somebody being like, "Ha ha, look at you. You went out on a limb and had thoughts and ideas and considered things and stepped out and spoke about it and asked people how what they thought and people who thought similar and you got them along board." That doesn't scare me. The reason people are scared about stuff like that is because they're doing wrong and they know it beforehand. I'm convicted of what I'm doing. There's nothing in me that believes that this is not the and look, I understand that probably is one of those things that people have the famous last words. I bet, but good people die carrying on missions just like bad people die carrying on bad deeds. Things happen. The whole point is to get the mission out there, to start the movement, to send the message. That's the point of this, right? So I have no issue, but specifically, yeah. So I have no concern about going into it like it's not prophetic, it's just speaking. It's prophesying, but it's not trying to be prophetic. It's not trying to predict. I'm not trying to predict the future. I'm building the future. I'm creating the future. And I'm just speaking. Speak what you see until you see what you speak. I'm just speaking the future that I see and then speaking the future that I want to see. And we'll get to that. I mean, like we'll get to that specifically. Like I said, so as far as when you're going into a space of wanting to make sure that you want to go into the echo chamber, I mean to the firing squad, you want to go into the space where it's like, yo, they're going to tear me down. It's the refinement process. That's what I mean. Like this is recalibration. It's a constant refinement process because I want to make sure that when this comes out, it's everything it's meant to be. All the BS has been burned off of it. It's been purified, it's been cleansed, it's been molded, it's been perfected, it's been built up to be what it's supposed to be. And even still, it's going to go through an iteration process. That's how this thing works to me. Yeah, we're never done. New every day, never done. That's for humanity, that's for business, that's for movement, that's across the board. New every day, never done. I like that. New daily, never done. So, like I said, okay, so going into, yeah, like how, the idea that time, when it was posted, who posted it, why they posted it, where they posted it, all these things matter, right? So him putting his reputation out there on his platform, on his website, and it's evergreen. It's there to live. It's not like he went on somebody else's podcast that was, popping for a moment to get his 15 minutes of fame. This is me. It's this. He did, and that's why too. So I reckon something went wrong. That's what it told me. What he did is the same thing I'm doing, right? Leaving breadcrumbs for somebody to come back and not necessarily breadcrumbs. I don't know. I can't say that that's why he did it, but I know that's what he's done. Is leave it for me to find along the way and go back and say, oh, okay, interesting. This was the moment in time. This was somebody telling their story. This was somebody projecting consciousness into the ether. Even if it was never to be heard then, once the time comes for it to matter, for it to mean something in reality, because it meant something then. Now it means something because it exists. It was a prediction then. It was speaking in the future that you saw. Well, now the future is here. So it has to be addressed. It has to be confronted. It has to be dealt with, reconciled. That's what this is. But the reason I'm able to do so is because not because I'm looking for confirmation on what I already knew or what I already believe, but because I'm looking for scrutinization. I'm looking to make sure so that before I go out on a limb or tell anybody else to, that I really do believe that this is what what I'm saying is what I feel and what I see and what I'm experiencing and what I'm living. And I can say that. So at its core, your approach is about strategic acquisition. And I'm not sure what specifically made me bring that up. I know I was thinking, how I was led to it. Yeah, the reason that Something about the iteration. At its core, your approach is about strategic acquisition, reinvestment, and controlled circulation of capital, leveraging institutional funding to start the cycle, but keeping the control, growth, and benefit within the community. The buyback model, coupled with overpaying for homes to ensure sellers can reinvest into the system, a bold but necessary gamble that aligns with long-term wealth creation rather than short-term profit taking. Again, within this, I'm going to have to explain some of it because I haven't discussed. I didn't go through the voice memo, right? So, at its core, your approach is about strategic acquisition, reinvestment, and controlled circulation of capital. So, what he brought up was basically the way in which I wanted to see if there was any pool that I already spoke about in the paragraph before. So he brought up the way in which where we're coming from, what we saw post pandemic is housing market, student debt, and the used car market. None of them look great. Inflation, credit, we're headed toward a mass reckoning, right? You got so as far as how the reason so specific as far as housing prices go, right? And it adds up. So during the pandemic, you had a lot of small business that were founded. People had the time, people had the money, people the saved up money, right? The disposable income that wasn't being spent out into the world, right? For the personal savings, as they call it, at the time, and then the freedom to do so, the willingness to do so, the urge to do so because they need to do something. And it just seemed like it was everywhere. Like at that time, it was everywhere. Everybody was starting a business. It was crazy. I started my first two businesses during the pandemic. My first three, really. I may have started 4 or 5 businesses during the pandemic for real. Like we all did. If you didn't start a business during the pandemic, every entrepreneur you see today for real probably started some sort of business during the pandemic for real. We all were. The pandemic was a grind time, okay. And for anybody listening to this in the future, I'm telling you right now, the pandemic, 2020, the year 2020, what a time to be alive. It was insane. I'm gonna be honest. It was an insane time. We didn't know what was up. We didn't know. We didn't know where we were headed next. There was a movie called Bird Box. We thought everybody was done for. We still, and that's where I'm going with it. If if you look back to 2020, there was this conversation. This I said this conversation. The only conversation during the pandemic was about the new normal. We kept hearing the new normal, the new normal, the new normal, and we kept asking what the new normal meant. And then we got out of the pandemic. Lockdown ended. We were back outside. And we thought we were experiencing the new normal. But things haven't been normal for a while now. For a long time, they haven't been normal. But then the pandemic made us question what normal ever was and if normal ever suited us. So while we're in the midst of questioning whether normal ever worked, right, we have the pandemic, I mean, the massive racial reckoning of 2020. You got the marches, you got stimulus checks, you got Donald Trump's reelect or not reelection, but you got Donald Trump not getting reelected across the board, and then come 2021, literally 6 days in, you got the January 6th riot. Like there was in the span, I'd say from the end of 2019, specifically as an individual who started college in August of 2019. So from the end of 2019 through the middle of like 2021, to say uncertainty was at the highest. I mean, it had been in my 20 years, and people much older than me felt the same. It had been the highest uncertainty they'd ever experienced. I mean, we've had some major things go on, but then you look at it and you recognize, oh, we've never not had major things going on. We've never not had major things going on. So what was the new normal other than just a way to describe the fact that we're constantly adjusting? I said we're being stress tested to see how much, as human beings, to see how much we can take. And I don't even mean that. Do you? One would think probably mean that from a spiritual perspective. I don't, because God knows. God wouldn't do that. He wouldn't trust. He's going to push you to your limit. He's going to give you all you can handle and more to show you that you can handle more. That's not the same thing as feeling like your government, the people who are responsible for you, in theory, who claim the responsibility for you at least, it's not the same thing as feeling like they are testing you to see how far they can go, in some ways for their own amusement, in some ways to see. The thing about testing somebody to see how far they can go is you don't know how far they can go until they've gone as far as they can. That's the difference. God knows already. So God knows what your limit is. He's showing you that you don't know what your limit is. They don't know what your limit is. They know what they think your limit is. And they want to see if they're right or wrong. And the only way to find out is to break your limit. It's to break you. I was laying down last night and I could see this individual saying, well, we tried. It's not what we were expecting. Okay. And literally like doing this. Sorry, I don't know what you want me to do. We tried. I can see it. I mean, I said I can see it because we've seen like people. I think genuinely, and this is a complete tangent, but it plays in. I think really we do not. I mean, but I say we. I know we don't. I see it every day. It's a specific type of individuals, it's specific groups of people. And here's the thing about the specific groups of people. It's no one group of people, and the people belong to no one group. So it's not black people, and the people that are doing it are not solely black. It's not black people who are not paying attention in school and don't know their history. It is not just the people who don't know the history just happen to be black because you could pin it on the black people or the thing being done to black people. Maybe they're not being taught. Well, it's not just that they're not being taught it. No, it's that right. I digress. I'm not going to go into that. I will, but I'm not going to go into it specifically. The point is, people don't know, and to not. I mean, it makes sense. When you don't know, we're doing the repeat, and we just keep repeating cycles. So when you talk about the new normal, well, we're in this cycle of redefining normal, and normal was never normal by definition. It was just normalized. And so you get to this point, I talk about cultivated crazy. Well, as a society, we didn't cultivate crazy. We didn't choose crazy. We just were crazy. And kind of we keep sweeping it under the rug to not acknowledge it the same way we're doing our debt. We're in a debt spiral. We're in a depression spiral. All of it. And they're byproducts of each other. People are depressed because they're in debt. So they go deeper. The individual is a microcosm of the macro. So individual human sentiment lets you know what the broader thing looks like. So as I think about this whole thing, and I'm like, yo, you know what I remember in 2022? Same time, so he wrote his report that he's basing this off of September 22, right? Okay. September 20, not September 22, sorry. Yeah, it would have been September 22 for him. Fall of 21, in my economics class, learning about macro now, right? Macroeconomics made sense to me, but I didn't enjoy it the same way. For some reason, macro just clicked. Macro was like, yeah, this makes sense. Because I guess it was me understanding how the larger organism. So it was me applying. It was like, yes, this makes sense. The part to whole and whole to part. That always just naturally made sense. So in macroeconomics, our final exam at the end of the fall semester, 2021, was about, I think it was, I don't know if it was about inflation specifically, but I think it was. I think we had to find an example of, I don't know, maybe we just had to find an example of a macroeconomic trend in the news, in a recent news article. Well, mine was from Denver Record Chronicle about inflation for Thanksgiving meals, for the price of Thanksgiving meals. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but it had risen dramatically. Like you couldn't, the supply chain and the prices, right? So we were still facing supply chain issues. And because of the supply chain issues, we were facing massive prices. Okay, so going back, during the pandemic, a bunch of small businesses were founded. Okay. So you got a bunch of small businesses that were founded, excuse me, with people's personal savings. So two things. One, at least they didn't finance it with debt, but they also weren't making money because people weren't working. Right? So there's nothing to replenish the personal savings. So you spend your personal savings on a business and you go all money in, no money out. Okay, great. But small businesses fail within what? The first 3 to 5 years. It may be 2 to 3 years. Well, we're now looking at 5 years later. So 3 to 5 years, when he posted this, 3 years. So we're looking at the aftermath of something that only happened just 5 years ago. But we defined the new normal in 2021 and 2022. And it's 2025, and we're looking at this and we're like, yo, things aren't normal because they never were and they never became a new normal. Cycles. I'm bringing the cycles thing back. And I don't even necessarily have to bring it back because it's not new. The New World Order, Ray Dalio, principles, cycles. This thing goes in cycles. And they say if you don't learn it, you're doomed to repeat it. But it's not that you're doomed to repeat it. It's that you're doomed to allow an individual who does know it to repeat it. That may be good, that may be bad. Individual like me who is learning the history, who does know the history, is who wants to use it for good. But the reason I went into learning it was for good. You could say, the exposure to knowledge can manipulate, knowledge corrupts. I don't know. They say power is what corrupts. Knowledge is power, but I always say applied knowledge is power. Well, if you apply it in a certain manner, clearly the way I'm applying my knowledge has not brought me power per se. What does that tell you? It's a certain type of individual. I wouldn't say knowledge nor power corrupts, nor is money the root of all evil. But what we know is that certain people built a foolproof system, as we talked about yesterday, that wasn't really foolproof because you built it hoping that you built it hoping one thing, knowing another, hoping that the individuals that you kept it from, that you thought to be the fools, would never, but and I say hoping, believing that they would never crack the system, I guess. Or believing that either your descendants were so immune to being fools or knew that they would be, so you prepared for them knowing that they would come about and try to mess it up, or be ready to mess it up, be adept at messing it up and be fools, or worried that they may be. And so in the case that they may be, you prepared. Either way, you built your own death trap. Hubris. Icarus. They're flying too close to the sun. We are flying too close to the sun. I think the thing about flying, I was flying too close to the sun. I didn't put these wings on. I didn't put the wings on. I did not jump out the window. So I'm not going down with the ship. I'm not doing it. I did not put the holes in the ship. I didn't even send the ship out to sea. I'm not going down with it. But the best way to not go down with it is to know you on the boat. Is to recognize you on the boat. You better devise a plan. They talk about the Titanic. They say during the Titanic going down, the rich folk don't want to get in the lifeboat because they don't want to get their seawater on their silk. Baby, it's going down, sugar, we're going down, swinging. Hey, I'm not going down without a fight. I sound like AOC. I'm not going down without. We getting it in. I'm going toe to toe. I've been shadowboxing with myself. We're ready. I'm ready to go toe to toe. So going back, small businesses fail. Okay, where you put all your money in, personal savings are wiped. You didn't go into debt, but now you need to, whether it's personal or business. Okay. So if you are leveraged personally, well, you need income to pay that. So say you're leveraged personally and there's no income from the business coming in. Well, now you don't go and have to leverage the business too. GG. Now you're double leveraged in debt with no income coming in, so you got to close the business down. So, and these all can happen separately, but let's just frame one individual because I'm sure plenty of these exist. Okay, 2020, your personal savings are good because okay, let's really paint the picture of an individual. Okay, let's really paint the picture of an individual. It's 2008. You are affected by the crash, but you recover. Okay, 2020 comes along, you've used the last 12 years to get back up. You're good. Your personal savings, you out of debt, or for the most part, you're debt free. You don't have a lot, whatever. Your personal savings are back up. You're rolling. You're doing well. Pandemic comes around, you get laid off. Don't worry. Wife, you got a job. We did just buy that new house, right? But we were about to buy a new. We did just buy a new house. Interest rate were slashed, and I'm more thinking because what happened during the pandemic rate. So interest rates slashed. Interest rates are low. Housing prices are high. So people who got in had low mortgage payments, right? A 3-4% interest rate, but the process they about the house at $600,000 house that at the time wasn't even worth $600,000. You overpaid. Right? Even if it was 450. Okay. Now we come into this space of inflation and a recession. The housing market is going to crash. People are not going to have the money to pay for it, but they're also going to need the money. If people want to buy homes, they're not going to have the money to buy the homes. And even if they wanted to, they'd have to go get loans for them at high interest rates, which means, so you're looking at anybody who did buy those homes, they want to get one, they don't want to sell because if they do and go to try to buy another house, even though prices will be low, they have to lose their interest rate. Nobody wants to do that. Okay. Well, now you got to come in individual who the house that you would sell for, even if somebody was going to buy it, did have the money to buy it, you're not even gonna get the 450 that it was worth when you bought it, when you should have only paid 450 for it. You're lucky to sell that for 300. Okay. So now you've lost equity. If you do want to buy a second home, you're going to have to go into, well, nobody wants to do that. So the whole point of raising interest rates is to cool people going into debt, people taking out loans. Yes, sure. But if there's no loans being taken out, there's no loans being taken out, no new money's entering the economy because there's also no money being made. So we go back to that individual that say, forget they maybe come out of 2008 healthy, but we're in 2020. Okay. Maybe you just bought a new. So okay. For now, we're only talking about the individual who lost their job, started a business. They need their personal. Or maybe this is why they need their personal savings or need personal money, but they need personal money to pay for just daily lifestyle. They also need business. They also need debt for their money for their business. They take out a business loan. Well, when no new income comes in, they default. You got a bunch of people default. You got a banking crisis. Let alone the fact that you got a housing crisis coming from those individuals who all bought in at high prices, low interest rates. When that flips, and then there's no new money being for anybody to buy a damn thing. Well, this is when the rich people come in and buy distressed assets from foreclosures, or we're gonna let me buy that up off you real quick. Then that's when you see renters increase. I digress. Not because I digress, but because we're going somewhere. So like I said, leveraging institutional funding to start the cycle, but keeping the control, growth, and benefit within the community. The buyback model, coupled with overpaying for homes to ensure sellers can reinvest into the system, is a bold but necessary gamble that aligns with long-term wealth creation rather than short-term profit taking. That's it. That's the rub. Right. So that's the part that came to me today. Interesting. If that's what we're predicting is coming, right? Banking, credit card debt, student loans, housing, unemployment, and what's the last one? The auto industry, used car market. All these different things line up. Any of them, goodbye. But specifically that housing market, and what you expect there to occur, then you're talking about a position where the same way that so I'm like, what they do is how the banks win, one of two ways, or the institutional investors, one of two ways. Either for you, you default, you go delinquent on payments, you default, foreclosure, they take it back. Yes, it may be for the, when the bank flips it, they may lose money ridiculously, but when they do sell it again, right? So now they're not only able to make the profit they made, and then when it's time to sell it again, they're able to sell it over, inflate the price then, so they make that profit back. But now they're selling it again at a high interest rate. So that's not what I want to do. Nothing like water. How I see it is because what they're doing is buying for pennies on the dollar and then flipping for dollars on the dollar. Still got to fully flesh this out. That's the point of fleshing it out here, and then the way that I go about it. But and I may, because we're probably nearing 40 minutes, but I could go an hour and a half with this one. I could go 2 hours with this one. I could go a while with this one. The way I see it is, you get an institutional investor that has the capital to go in and buy distressed assets. Okay. At the same time we're buying distressed assets, we're buying them a couple of different processes. This is the one that really just came to me, so I want to take this route and walk this out. But you have an institutional investor that comes in, we use their funds to buy the distressed assets. In buying, say, a home of an individual from, you're going to buy a block on the south side of Chicago of homes that are maybe going to go into foreclosure or default, or maybe not. Ones some that are, and then the adjacent one. That's a process that I have to walk out more. But you go in, you're buying a home. Let's say this home was bought for 400,000. Now that the market is, has dictated it 250, we're still going to pay 400,000. In fact, here's 5, right? To overprice the home, to set it at market value at 5, because this is the same thing they do with businesses, right? This is how Trump just got, when he paid his legal fees last year. This is what he did. He got his own people to appraise his properties right then, so that they were evaluated at this price, so that when he sold them, he could sell them at this number to an individual who's willing to buy it. Not because when you give that, if I'm Elon Musk with 700 billion, and you're Donald Trump about to run for the presidency, and I believe that if $1 billion is nothing off my back, so yeah, value your buildings at $1 billion, I'll buy them. Now you got $1 billion that I just gave to you without having to even go into campaign finance law, without even having to touch a super PAC. You got $1 billion. I now have assets that are worth $1 billion technically, because that's what we're deciding they're worth. You say they are, I say they are, he says they are. Because if I sell it, I'm selling it to him, and he's just going to give me $1 billion for it. And we're just going to keep passing $1 billion around in the form of buildings. It's monopoly. We just keep passing $1 billion around. You need it? Oh, you need the $1 billion today? Okay, here. Hey, I'm putting these in your name real quick. It's the same thing it's poor people, rich people do the same stuff for real. You put in the cable in so-and-so name, and then it's a susu. They're running the susu. So it's actually crazy. The metagame and how to play it. It's beautiful. It's what Elon did when he bought Twitter. You put your Tesla shares up, have your Tesla shares evaluated at a certain price, borrow against them, buy X. Well, now the Tesla shares are worth that much. Now the X shares are worth that much. You borrow against it, and then you put that money in and I'm not saying exactly that's what happened. I don't know. I do know, but I don't feel like going into it right now. And there's some thinking I got to do through it to make sure I'm saying what I think I'm saying. But the whole point is, it's just a restructuring of the way that the generational wealth works. You just keep passing it on. Capital gains tax. Tax evasion and tax avoidance aren't the same thing, right? Capitalism as a means to, people talk about capitalism facilitate. It doesn't reward greed as much as it facilitates greed. It rewards action and effort, right? So when you move in the market, capitalism gives you it rains on the just and the unjust all the same. Nature does not discriminate. That's a human quality. That's a human trait, right? Division is man's thing. Nature, nature. Anybody can get it. Everybody can get it. It's up to you what you get. Yeah, they know this, right? So, if I go in, okay, this house is 500,000. We're gonna pay $500,000 for it because if I give an individual $500,000 for their home, and I now own the home, but they're in my system where they're 500, they're gonna go buy a home from me. It's what the VA does. Hey, here's a loan because you got to go buy a home. Not in that. Yes and no. I'm not gonna put that on them, but that's how I see that process. Same game. We're insuring these homes basically because you know that money's secure because it came from me, right? The money that I'm. It's literally how we got into the debt crisis, printing our own money to pay ourselves. Because if we print our own money to pay ourselves, you never got to worry about having to be paid back. If I can't pay you back, just print more money. When I can, you get to be able to print more money because you got a little bit of a cushion because I paid you back the money you printed from before. So here's 500,000. Go and buy another house from within the network, put the excess into the market. All that 500,000 that's technically going back to me, but not directly to me, is going into the system. What does the system allow me to do? Go buy another house. So then I go and buy another one. And it's all actively happening. So maybe not go buy another one. But now this phase, what you push that into, right? This crop has now bought into a community investment project in the neighborhood, right? So say we focus on, okay, because that's where I was going with this. So say we buy a block in the south side of Chicago. Maybe not all of them, but some of them, okay? You also buy the Purse building in Dallas. You start building that as an anchor project. Jobs, schools, community, homes. Individuals come in, right, through the migration support platform, get set up, buy a home through the process, through like Promise Homes type beat. Once they push in, so the money they put in is to invest in their community. As they're doing so, the individuals that just left there, or maybe not even just left there, but wherever, that's something I gotta walk out. I'm talking about it as I'm going through it. And I love because I know Notebook LM will pull this and talk about it and give me some action steps. But yeah, it's just a process of, and you continue to move the capital forward. I was watching a TED talk. I forget who said it, but they were talking about it was either a TED talk or in Steve Harv Eker's The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. He was talking about you give somebody, so you put 5 people on stage, and you give the first person a $5 bill. You told them to buy something from the second person. And actually, there was this experiment somebody did, same thing, where it was like on Facebook, it was a barter system, right? Create value without money exchange. So it was like one person wrote a song for somebody's birthday. That person cooked that person dinner. And then somebody else, dinner got them a car. And the car, they traded that for a trip to somewhere. And then they traded that for, and at some point, everybody gets, and it started with like a song, somebody's physical talent, right? They talk about wealth creation, how wealth is like literally wealth creation is, but that's why, okay, going way back, when I brought up the thing about, like the reason that this resonates in the confirmation bias of it, they were like the idea that it does confirm, but I wouldn't say it confirms bias as much as it confirms belief. Through me desiring to not have bias is because I know me, right? Wealth creation. I know it resonates with me. I know where I was going with that, but it'll pull back up. Where wealth creation exists, like how it exists is If an individual built a car, or that I know that's what it was. I was thinking the idea that certain stuff only really comes out. You have to build you, right? It's time, it's you, so it's what resonates with you. But I understand that I'm able to parse and dissect the information and understand it at a level because I'm understanding it through me, and like I'm it's the recalibration process, right? But the fact of the matter is that leverage equity resources thing, the time, the reason, and then the person. Well, in this case, wealth creation is the same thing. When you are an individual that has the knowledge of how to work on cars, a junker car to them is worth more than it probably would cost based on the price, based on its value to somebody else. Worth, price, cost, value, not the same thing. They all correlate and have connection, but they're not the same thing. What something is worth to me may not be what it's valued at because it's priced at what it cost. What it costs me is what it's worth to me, but it may not cost me the price. It may cost more than the price. It may cost less than the price. And then that's when I attach value to it. If it costs less than the price, but it was extremely worth it to me, that I got great value out of it. If it cost less and wasn't super worth it, I still got great value, maybe. If it cost more and wasn't worth it, I didn't get good value. If it cost more and was worth it, I got probably equal value or at least good value, right? So value is relative, worth is relative, price is pretty constant, pretty static, but not constant. Value or cost is relative and static, not constant. I said to say, so if you know how to fix a car, fix any car, you're a master mechanic. Well, a junker car that's being sold for $1,500 to you, for $1,500, is worth $10,000 to you, but its price is $1,500, and you may be able to get it because that person doesn't value it. They just want to get it off. What is it worth to get rid of it to them? It's worth dropping an extra $500 off the price. Or what's it worth to you to get it? To add an extra $500 because maybe they recognize the value of it. It just is worth $10,000 to them because they know that they don't have the knowledge to build it, to create the will. But an individual that's only looking for, say they're only looking for $1,000, they only need $1,000 to do something with that 500 was just, hey, you know what? If I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. But if that 1,000 is what I need to make a move that's going to net me 10,000. An exchange of $1,000 can create $20,000 for two different individuals. It works that way. It does. And here's the thing. Once it does, now you've created an entire economy based off one transaction. Because once he does what he's going to do, somewhere along the way, that $1,000 has played a role in probably multiple, or maybe it only went to one space, and maybe he didn't make immediate lump sum off of that. So along the way, there was trickle from that as it came in, it went out. Or maybe it did all come in at once, and then it was put somewhere. Or maybe not even that specific money, but what it allowed you to do. Here's the thing. That's the exact same thing that creates wealth outside of you. The same thing that creates wealth within the community is what creates wealth outside of your community. It's what happened during the pandemic. Whether you're talking about from the stimulus side or what is causing the very housing market we're discussing. What led to us being in debt the way we are. As a nation or as individuals, you name it. As a nation, when we were in crisis and we needed to create new wealth, well, we didn't create wealth, we just printed money. See, money is riches. Wealth is not riches per se. That's why, the knowledge, power, evil, money thing isn't all straightforward. Because knowledge is wealth. Wealth is knowledge. Wealth is knowledge of creation. If you have knowledge of how to create, then you can make wealth. You can literally make wealth. Whereas if you only have knowledge, like the ability to make money, making money and building wealth are not the same, or creating wealth are not the same thing. You can have the ability to make money and not the knowledge to create wealth. And I'm not saying that these people don't have the knowledge to create wealth. Clearly they do. But again, the thing about it is when your knowledge is gained with the purpose of pursuing power, and applied knowledge is power, money is not the root of all evil, but making money, that way is. Pursuing power, that way is. Accessing knowledge, that way is. Yes, nature reigns on the just and the unjust, but if the unjust, the whole thing for the unjust is, why would I want the just to get it? They're just gonna make sure I don't have any. Not necessarily, but also yes. But even still, the fact of the matter, I mean, that's the thing. Creating abundance through a scarcity mindset doesn't last. And that's what they've been doing. That's what America has done for the longest. Right? Convince us that there's only so much to go around. And so everybody's got to wait their turn, except for the people who are at the top of the food chain because of trickle-down economics. If they wait their turn, then nobody gets a turn because they have to always take. It's the person who never wants to, like they always want to play. They always want to go first. And if it's like if I don't play, if I can't play, nobody plays. Well, here's the thing about that. I want to play. Yeah, you might have invented the game. I just make up a like that and that's what that's what we're seeing actively in our government. We're seeing a bunch of kids that would have taken their ball home. We're seeing the kids that took their ball home when they grew. Like we're seeing they won't let me play. You're a kid. Like the little kid who's mad that the big kids won't let them play with them. And here's my thing. I probably was that. We all were that at some point. I probably was that too. But I got over it because I had parents who were like, okay, and go play your own. They what you know what they would tell me? Go make up your own game. Go play by yourself. So I did. I played by myself. And I'm not saying that like in any type of woe is me sense because I had friends. I didn't always have friends. But I wanted to play with the big kids. I always wanted to play with the big kids. Just like a lot of people like me did. And I realized I had to play. But here's the thing. I wasn't resentful about having to play by myself. I found joy. I realized, oh, I'm very fun. And then when I would play by myself, they would want to come play with me. People would want to come play with me. So I realized that, oh, if I just be me, people want to join in with what I'm doing. And then people told me that. Like they'd be like, yo, you're a leader, Marcus. People want to do what you do. Oh, okay, cool. And I found out that was true. So I tried to make sure that I was doing, for the most part, good things because I realized, oh, yeah, if people want to do what I do, I don't want to steer anybody off the. I always say, you know, when parents say, if Johnny jump off a cliff, you're going to jump too. Mom, I'm Johnny. Always have been, always will be. I'm Johnny. Here's Johnny. Right? On the other hand, these are people that would be like, yeah, bro, I'm going to jump with you. They'd never jump. They wouldn't. And then, when somebody come around asking, well, what happened? Well, it looked, and then I don't know. I just bunch of reasons why. They're not just gonna say, you know what, I wasn't feeling it no more. I never really wasn't gonna jump. I probably shouldn't have let him jump, or probably shouldn't even told him I was going to. But yeah, I did mess up there. They're not willing to, because hey, it's wrong, but it's true. These are people who would have taken their ball home growing up. So in the context of, you know, the game and how to play it, the meta game and how to play it, well, these are individuals who they're creating abundance out of scarcity, have been for the longest, because they feared And I'm thinking something right now that, like, it's something crazy that I've been told for centuries, for ages. It's not centuries, for so long now, and here, bootstrap, bootstrap, bootstrap. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Yo, y'all didn't let us have shoes. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's the thing, is like, we're talking, they say pull yourself up by your bootstraps to people who don't have boots. You couldn't walk a mile in my shoes. Yeah, and you don't walk anywhere. So, because let me move on. The buyback model, coupled with overpaying for homes to ensure sellers can reinvest into the system, is a bold but necessary gamble that aligns with long-term wealth creation rather than short-term profit taking, because you create wealth by passing money forward. Here's the thing, like, that's what you when you're passing money forward, you actually want things to be inflated in price, because when you're passing money forward, when you're creating wealth and passing money forward, you want it to be as much money as possible. And the only way to do so, yeah, here's the thing. You want the price to not be as high as possible. I really can't see any instance if you're buying something, but then that's only if you're buying it and you think and you plan to sell it, and you know that there's a likelihood, like, if you're to overpay for something that you plan on selling, especially that you plan on selling and know that there won't be any appreciation, or that especially that there will be depreciation, you don't want to overpay, because that's just stupid. You're losing money at the payment, and you're losing money by either not appreciating or by depreciating. Either way, you're losing. Don't go into that. But to buy something that you plan to hold, and then that you can borrow against, or use as an asset to inflate your net worth, take it. I'm liquid. But what if you're not? But if you overpay for something, you're liquid. You weren't liquid, but you also weren't illiquid. Because that's the thing. When an individual who didn't have to go into debt to buy the home, but also use their personal savings, or didn't have to go into debt to build the business, but also use their personal savings to do so, is at net zero. The thing about being at net zero is, when you're at net zero, if you start at net zero, you really can't go backward, because anything backward would be kind of only staying at zero, and you wouldn't know any different. You'd be going backward to anybody who's moving forward, because they recognize, oh, you'd have slipped, but you probably wouldn't see yourself going backward. Individual who went to net zero, who went backward to go forward, if they never go forward, even if they only stay where they're at, it'll be confusion. But they won't only stay where they're at, because you either get better or you get worse. You don't stay the same. That's what inflation is. Stagnation does not really exist. Well, we do have stagflation, but you're not stagnant here. As an individual, stagflation exists in the macro, and it's a reflection of the micro, right? Stagflation exists because inflation hasn't yet occurred. The recession hasn't yet hit, because we're still waiting for the after effects, the aftershock of people, of individuals feeling it, right? But if you went net zero, or you went net zero to go forward, so took a step back to go forward, well, what if you start going backward? Now you're angry. Or, yeah, if you only did go forward a little bit, or even if you got back to net zero, the thing is, you feel betrayed. Right, so I think where we're headed, people are going to feel confused, betrayed, or angry, or all of the above. For those reasons, why am I? It's the Red Queen's race. You run as hard just to stay in place. It's insanity. Even people who've been doing insanity intelligently are feeling real crazy, because they're no longer. The thing about the cultivated crazy, the choosing your crazy, is what you find is, regardless, society still exists. And you still have to be, just because you're in the world and not of it, doesn't mean you're not in the world. And at the end of the day, you do have to still experience it and abide by the physical laws of the universe. And the physical laws of the universe say that when the social order reaches the fever pitch, Good luck, Charlie. That's where we're at. Yeah, you got our spread out, enlightened individuals who've been doing things, preparing, whether they knew what was coming or not, whether they felt it coming. That's just how they operate across the board, right? That are and those are the ones that will, at the very least, survive this and probably come out thriving because they had the mindset, right? Wealth creation, it's in here. It's in you, not on you. And what's in you, they can't take. The ability to create wealth, and this is biblical, right? Made in the image of God, God is a creator. God is the creator. God is creative. So at core, we are all wealth creators. But it's how and why you do it. What's your purpose? And so that maybe we'll I'm sure that'll find its way into a whole conversation. I may do a metagame and how to play it part 2. Because facts, where I just went was deep. Where I just went was right there, right and tight. So, yeah, the idea is doing the same thing. It's rather, and that's what it's been the whole time. That's what all cap. It's literally what the vision of it is and was from the beginning. Reverse engineering the principles that have gotten us here. Oh, how did we get here? Interesting. Okay. Not what if I just do everything differently, the opposite per se, but kinda. I tell the kids all the time at school, okay, well if you tried to add it and that didn't work, try to subtract it. Did that work? Okay, bet. It's PEMDAS. I mean it literally is it's solving for X. But you do to one side, you gotta do the other, because you just gotta do the opposite of everything you see there. Pause real quick, I'll be back. Okay. Uh, So finish it up. Your concept of circulating dollars multiple times before leaving the system is the exact opposite of how money traditionally moves in Black communities, where it exits almost immediately. If you can institutionalize that cycle, say through a fund that community members buy into, while an anchor project, like the First Building model, serves as the economic nucleus, then you're not just talking about a real estate play. You're building a modern day Black Wall Street with a migration support element, ensuring that even those who leave are reinvesting into something bigger than themselves. The real challenge, execution at scale. How do you secure that first institutional investor? What legal framework supports this type of community wealth building fund? How do you structure incentives so that both individual participants and the collective benefit? How do you prevent the model from being co-opted or undermined by external interests? If you get this right, it's not just a real estate play, it's a new economic paradigm for Black wealth building. And I mean, yeah, that's why I'm thinking about it just now. I probably won't do necessarily. I may do a metagame how to play it part 2, but I do believe that running this chat out, I mean, the last, this will end up, I don't know how clipping things together on YouTube has looked, but I paused twice. So, and then pausing in this one, coming back here, actually stopped it instead of resuming it. So it'll clip as like 3 separate videos. So I don't know how that'll look, but probably runtime, we're at over an hour. So I think, and so much, like I said, because everything builds and it's an iterative process of thinking and ideating and then coming back and recalibrating and learning and unlearning and relearning, sprint race, repeat, all of that coming together. Well, everything that I maybe wanted to bring up that I didn't, or that I thought I was going to do a whole video on, has found its way into here. Everything that needed to be said and needs to be said is coming out fully. Trust. I told Chet, I want to focus more on what Paul said. Is he right? Is winter coming? I see what he sees, but just because we see the same things, it doesn't make either of us right. But I think we are. I'm going to do a YouTube video titled "The Metagame: How to Play It," and in it, I'm going to cover the coming collapse and how we got here, and my plan to weather the storm and where I think we're headed. Right? Because that's what I want to do. I want to go fully into the crux of it, the core of it, the foundation of it, where the faults lie, and what we need to do to fix them, how we fix them. And maybe just going back real quick, right? Your concept of circulating dollars multiple times before leaving the system is the exact opposite of how money traditionally moves in Black communities, where it exits almost immediately, right? So in discussing earlier the wealth creation. What I didn't finish was the $5 thing, right? So you put five people on a stage, and you give the first person a $5 bill. And you say, buy something of value from the second person. So they buy a pen. And then you tell that person, buy something of value from the next person. And even more, here's what I'm really thinking. Buy something of value from the third person. Okay, they buy a notebook. Buy something of value from the fourth person, and they buy a their writing skills. They buy a writing course from them. Buy some value from the next person, and they buy the course. They buy the note from right the whole a book from them. And so say the book that was written, those people now come together. They form a collective to write a book that the fifth person has bought. This is me spitballing it now. The whole point was that at the end of it, by five people all exchanging the same $5 bill five times, $25 of value has been created off one $5 bill. Everybody has what they need, and now there's $25 to circle back into the economy. I don't know that there's 25 or is there five? That's something too. I don't know. I don't know if there's $25 to circle back into the economy or if there's still that same five. If $25 of value, yeah, because the price is still five. $25 of value has been created, but only $5 has been circulated. It's just been circulated five times, right? I almost went into taxes. I almost went into how taxes work and how we only get a, a quarter of every dollar, if that. Same game, the opposite way. So forget where I was going to go with that about the book and them coming together as a collective. But that's the game, right? That's it. That's the rub. The exact opposite of how money traditionally moves in black communities. Shout out to Jeezy and Rick Ross, the almighty black dollar, right? It's that. If you can institutionalize that cycle, say through a fund that community members buy into, while an anchor project like the First Building model serves as the economic nucleus, then you're not just talking about a real estate play. You're building a modern day Black Wall Street with a migration support element, ensuring that even those who leave are reinvesting into something bigger than themselves. So I've already explained that. I won't fully go into that. But yeah, just going into the idea that it's the closed loop system. Excuse me, it's a closed loop system. So chat replies, yeah, Paul's not crazy. Winter is coming. The only real debate is the severity and the timing of the storm. Why he's right. Some of this I'm reading for the first time. Inflation plus consumer debt equals a ticking time bomb. People maxed out credit to survive inflation. Wages aren't keeping up, so they're floating on borrowed money. When that well dries up, spending stops, businesses suffer, layoffs increase, and the cycle deepens. Housing market, a powder keg. People, we're going back to inflation and consumer debt real quick. Wages aren't keeping up, so they're floating on borrowed money. When that well dries up, spending stops, businesses suffer, layoffs increase, and the cycle deepens. That's the cycle I was talking about. Housing market, a powder keg. Home prices soared post-pandemic due to cheap money, low interest rates. Now, high rates and inflated prices mean fewer buyers. If job losses spike, foreclosures will surge, banks will buy properties back for pennies, and in 3 to 5 years, they'll sell them again at a profit. Liquidity crisis incoming. The government propped up the system in 2020 to 2021, but they can't keep injecting cash forever. If liquidity dries up, banks tightening lending, no more stimulus, markets pulling back, everything slows down. Investments, hiring, real estate, etc. Slowly, then all at once. This is the key. People expect collapse to look like an overnight event, but it never does. The cracks spread slowly, grocery prices, car repos, silent layoffs. Then one catalyst hits, a major bank failure, a credit crunch, or a housing downturn, and suddenly the dominoes fall fast. And if we remember, because I want to do a whole other, they don't do $1 billion, or there are no $500 million contracts for young black entrepreneurs yet. But when Sam Bankman-Fried, when that bank run, when that 5 regional banks collapsed in like a matter of a month, 4 weeks, I started paying real attention then. But it's almost like we forgot that happened. Right? I feel like we've almost, it feels like, because so much has happened. I mean, just last year, the current president, while he was on the on the election trail, was shot at. Not just shot at, shot, allegedly, as far as we know. Because it's like we just forgot that happened too. The sitting president, the incumbent president, the guy who was on the ticket up until 2 months before, dropped out of the presidential election. There's war in Gaza. There's war in Ukraine. There's been revolution everywhere. Like, then one catalyst hits, a major bank failure, a credit crunch, a housing downturn, and then suddenly the dominoes fall fast. What to watch? Bankruptcies rising, consumer, corporate, and local government insolvencies. 2, more layoffs, especially white collar and tech jobs, which have been artificially inflated. 3, commercial real estate collapse. A lot of empty office buildings equals massive bank write-offs. Because I have 2, once people can't pay their rent, and I'm not even talking about at home, I'm talking about businesses. Once businesses can't pay their rent, you got commercial entities not being paid. Then banks aren't being paid. GG's. Housing prices stagnating, then dropping. Sellers will cling to inflated values until they can't. Yeah. Government response. Will they print money, inflationary, or let it burn, deflationary? How to play the metagame. Reserve cash and liquidity. Cash is king in a downturn. Don't be over-leveraged. Build your war chest. Buy assets on fire sale. Real estate, businesses, and even stocks will hit discounts. Acquisition. Own hard assets. Land, resources, and cash flowing businesses are the safest bets. Buy dirt. Community and networks. When things get bad, relationships will matter more than money. Community. Community and networks. Think 5 to 10 years ahead. The collapse is an opportunity. The next Black Wall Street can be built on the ashes of this system. Planning, preparation. So I told Chad, I want to be specifically clear and detailed on the debt crisis, how it stemmed from generations before us that borrowed from our future to finance their present, how those policies and their awareness of their actions are probably the reason people in power have desired and needed to hold on to it. They knew it was just a matter of time, but didn't trust anybody else to fix it, so they made it worse trying to cover it up. How we never recovered from the 2008 recession or the pandemic because in both cases, we fueled wealthy individuals and corporate interests through more debt, and how the chicken or the egg style domino effect of all the underlying causes of the faults in the foundation of the system will lead to a cycle of economic depression, including hyperinflation and mass employment. I think I covered it all. That's what I said. Chat says, you got the core right. This crisis isn't new. It's been decades in the making. Here's how to break it down in a way that's undeniable and connects every piece of the puzzle. Right, so and following this immediately, I know, like I said, I would be switching tabs, and I had planned to. I know where I want to go. And I'll wrap it. I've got another chat titled Rebuilding a Broken System. So the debt crisis, the slow motion collapse. 1, borrowing from the future to finance the present. Post-World War II boom in the debt addiction. After World War II, the U.S. built its economic dominance on debt. The government funded infrastructure, war, and social programs like Medicare, Social Security by borrowing, assuming infinite growth will cover it. And that's because again, the thing about when your vision of the foolproof system is that we're just going to keep passing the same money around to each other, but that money is going to create new money, so we won't have to be passing the same money around. Because at some point there'll be new money to pass around, and then we'll pass that money around, and that money will make us more money, and so it makes sense. That's what I'm talking about. The issue is, it starts with the fact that you tried to keep people out. You tried to keep people out the system. You tried to rig the game, and then tell people it wasn't being played. I mean, it almost makes me a little emotional because I'm like, I don't know. I wish I could go back and ask, what were y'all thinking? What were you doing? What was the idea? Was it specifically so that you could make sure that an individual, like, were you hoping that I would never get a chance to make anything of myself? Is that really what the goal was? Because I'm on one hand, I was thinking, I'm like, well, if I were in that position, that's what I would do. No, it's not. If I were those people in that position, that's what I would do. But I don't know that because I don't know those people. And in the same way that they assume, right, that they built a narrative around people like me and then ran with it, and that's why we're where we are today. Well, I don't want to give that. I don't want to do that to them. It's unfair, and I know what it feels like. But at the same time, I can't help but wonder, man, it really does. I said, I also am a very smart individual and can trace logic. I can recognize a pattern, and it does seem like, man, y'all have really tried to make sure that anybody who looks like me stands what I stand for, believes what I believe. The metagame and how to play it, well, he just said game over. Too loud, too reckless, too ghetto. Okay. 1971, the dollar goes off the gold standard. Nixon detaching the dollar from gold meant money was no longer tied to real value. This let the government print and borrow endlessly, fueling inflation and reckless spending. Right, because if you're going to have to back it up. Here's the thing: my motto is proof of progress proves the process. Well, when you didn't have to back it up with physical, tangible evidence that you had the money, you could just say, "I promise we're gonna make it," and I'll go into who did that, and it makes sense. It tracks logically if you actually if the plan was to actually do so. And they talk about like people who get wealthy off of writing books. Well, okay, here's the thing. An individual who gets wealthy off of writing the book about how to get wealthy, I do understand how you could look at them and say, well, how can you tell me how to get wealthy if you're getting wealthy by selling me the book? Yes, but I don't think that's what they're telling you. Now, if that's what they're telling you, I don't know. I mean, I haven't really read many of those books. What I do know is writing a book, like writing a real book, writing a book takes effort, it takes time, it takes commitment, it takes dedication, it takes thought. It takes a lot of things that are all the things that it takes to create wealth. Right? What you've done is create wealth within yourself. You created leverage and equity within yourself, you as a resource. So I get it. And if you then turn around and you recognize, oh wow, yeah, this individual, right? Here's what I'll say. Maybe if they keep going bankrupt, and the play they run every time is to write another book about getting. Here's the thing. Now, if their idea is I'm gonna like this is my process to get wealthy, and I'm also gonna blow it, but then I'm gonna make it right back, and I'm gonna prove that this is possible. That's not the same thing as you keep going bust because you don't know how to maintain the money. And so every time you need more, you keep running the same play of writing another book and specifically selling it to the same suckers. And I feel a bit convicted by that, like in saying that. Because again, like the thing is, I fully can see how somebody could attack my vision with that. And I think it's unfair for me to just say, well, I'm not like them, so just trust me. But I think it is fair for me to say, I know why I'm not like them. I know exactly what makes me not like them. And I think if I explained it to you in conversation, you would be like, yeah, that makes sense. Again, it goes back to the little kid who, I always wanted to play the game. Always wanted to play the game. I always wanted to play the game. But the game was kept from me. And I was kept from the game. So I thought the game wasn't for me for a long time. But because of that, my motto was I want to play the game till I can change the rules because I didn't want to play that game. All they want to do is play that game because they know that they can change the rules at any time. They don't want to play any other game. They want to play only this game because it's the only game they know how to play. The second you tell them they can't play that game, they throw a fit and they don't want to play anymore. Me, you tell me we're changing the game. I'm like, okay, bet. What's next? You want to play that video? But that again, the difference. That clip of Anthony Edwards talking about look, table tennis, air hockey, you name it, I got it. It's not me. It's not me just believing that I'm just him like that. I do, but it's not just me believing I'm just the stuff and I don't stink. In fact, it's me knowing. It's me being willing to say, hey, I wouldn't go in there for about 30 to 45 minutes. I just dropped one. It stinks. And then somebody go in there and be like, yo, we don't even smell that bad. Oh, okay. I guess I just wanted to protect you for real. I really just, didn't want you to have to go in there. That's the kind of, versus an individual who would be like, and then they come out and be like, yo, who just went? And it's y'all the only two people in there. Bro, it stinks in there. I don't know where that came from. Yes, you do. You did it. Nixon detaching the dollar from gold meant money was no longer tied to real value. This let the government print and borrow endlessly, fueling inflation and reckless spending. The 80s and 90s, the corporate debt explosion, deregulation, cheap credit, and tax policies that rewarded debt rather than equity meant corporations took on massive leverage using borrowed money to boost stock prices and executive pay rather than reinvesting in sustainable growth. Deregulation, cheap credit, and tax policies that rewarded debt. I get the. That's interesting. 2000s, consumer debt becomes a time bomb. Low interest rates post 9/11 encouraged mass borrowing, home loans, student loans, credit cards. People weren't living within their means. They were borrowing their future income. 2, why the people in power couldn't let go. They knew the system was fragile. The elite saw the writing on the wall decades ago. Every financial crisis was met with more debt, not real solutions. The illusion of recovery. Instead of fixing root problems, leaders papered over them with quick fixes, bailouts, quantitative easing, money printing, and artificially low interest rates. They weren't solving problems, just kicking them down the road. They didn't trust new leadership to fix it. If you built your wealth, power, and reputation on a system you knew was unsustainable, would you hand the keys to someone who might expose it? Instead of handing it off, they doubled down, hoping to engineer a way out before the crash came. 2008 and COVID. The system was never fixed. 2008, a financial fire covered up with gasoline. That's it. The collapse happened because banks gambled with bad loans. Instead of letting the market correct itself, the government bailed them out. The Fed dropped interest rates to near zero, flooding markets with cheap money. This encouraged even more borrowing instead of real economic healing. It created the longest bull market in history, but it was fake growth built on cheap credit and speculation. Because that's the thing. It's like the S&P 500 itself is artificially inflated. Yeah, it's historically not gone below 10%, but the day it does, the day the S&P drops, and we're like, yo, S&P is not, the day that really doesn't give back what people are expected to get from it, that's when we know. I say that, I'm spitballing. Because, yeah, I'm sure we'll know before. I don't know, but we'll know. Our stock market, it really is. Our stock market is where it's at. That's what's going to get hit. That's why I call this all cap. Is the reason I don't trust our stock market is I don't trust recovery in our stock market because of the companies that make up the stock market. There's no black-owned companies on the stock market, on the NASDAQ or the Dow. There are, but it's like 5. COVID, the last nail in the coffin. Instead of restructuring the economy, we printed trillions to prop up businesses and the stock market. The wealthiest individuals and corporations made record profits while the working class got temporary relief that barely covered the damage. This directly fueled inflation, making today's crisis inevitable. 4, the unavoidable chain reaction, chicken or the egg, hyperinflation and the death of the dollar. When you print too much money, people lose trust in it. If faith in the US dollar collapses, we face runaway inflation like Weimar Germany or modern Argentina. Weimar, I think it's, because I know I realized I said in the last video, Weimar, but that W in German is pronounced like a V, so Weimar. Because, apparently the German economy is, I think Germany also just got a new president. They just elected somebody new, something like that. Yeah, Germany's down bad. Or modern Argentina. And just to talk about that, right? When you print too much money, people lose trust in it. If faith in the US dollar collapses, well, again, talking about our stock market being over leveraged, there's this economist named Rui Can't think of his name off the top of my head right now. But he basically talks about how he said a similar thing, like winter is coming. It's right there. Because looking at the way foreign investors are over leveraged into our market, I mean, here's the thing. A lot of these corporate investors are foreign investors. A lot of these institutional backers are foreign investors. So what happens when they our government debt is owned by foreign countries and foreign investors, foreign nationals. So what happens when one or two things happen? Because I pointed, I think I talked about this in the when I brought up the idea of if I give you $1 and then I call in my dollar, but you don't have my dollar, so I give you another dollar to cover that dollar. If I just happen to keep giving you dollars, by the time if I'm not liquid enough and I need my dollars back and you don't have my dollars to give, I'm out the game. Now maybe you could outlast until Paul come to get his, but if Paul come to get it too and you don't have it, now Paul's out the game. And even more, me and Paul, now you're out the game because you can't pay me or Paul back, so you're out the game. Now you got 3 players out the game, all from two people being over, one person being over leveraged, really. So that's the same thing going on here. We are over leveraged. They're like, okay, don't worry about it. You either gonna pay it back, or we're gonna take it back. One way or another, I'm gonna get my pound of flesh. Well, we can't pay it back, and they can't get it back. So unless we just cancel the debt, unless they're just like, you know what, don't worry about it, we're good. But they're not because they're not good, right? If they were good, it would be fine, but they're not. So they need. We can't give it to them. Now they're looking at us. Where's my money? I ain't got it, OG. Okay, bet. That's when people go to war. Debt defaults and banking crisis. Households, corporations, and even the U.S. government are tied to are too indebted to keep up payments. Defaults lead to mass bank failures. I think that's exactly what I was just saying. Self-explanatory. Households, corporations, and even the U.S. government are too indebted to keep up payment. Right. So when we get to a point, if the faith in the U.S. dollar collapses, investors come. So foreign investors come and say, "Hey, I'm pulling out the housing market." Crash. They come and say, "We're pulling our investment, our money out the stock market." Crash. The economist that I was just talking about from I think it was Rockefeller Foundation, he's basically saying um, American exceptionalism is a farce. But the very thing of it, the reason that it is what it is because it's been propped up by our own people. It's been propped up domestically in a propaganda sense to maintain supremacy. And then, well, other people, while they may not believe it, the money's there. Why is the money there? Because it's not backed by anything. They were just talking about there's no so hey, don't worry, give us more, we'll make it happen, don't worry, like we're going to make it. Okay, I know, but this one is going to, okay, I know, but this one is going to work. Give it a little more time, just a little more money. At a certain point, there is no more time and there's no more money. Then what? Mass unemployment and the death of middle class jobs. The recession will wipe out industries that have been on life support, retail, commercial real estate, etc., leading to job losses not seen since the Great Depression. Where this ends, a cycle of economic depression, short-term inflation, stagflation, interest rate whiplash. The Fed is trapped. Lowering rates fuels inflation, raises them, crashes the economy. And that's why we haven't seen the movement that people keep talking about. Well, just a couple of years, no. We've been in this for a while now. I don't know when they're going to call it, but we've been in this for, I don't know what it looks like when they do. Midterm, economic collapse and debt reset. At some point, debt will become unpayable. Either governments default or the dollar gets replaced as the world reserve currency. Yikes. Long term, the new system. The collapse will force a restructuring of the economy. A shift toward decentralized finance, asset-based wealth, and local economic networks is likely. A shift toward decentralized finance, asset-based wealth, and local economic networks is likely. Your own point, this was inevitable. The only real question is who will control what comes next. This is where your metagame matters. The metagame, how to play it. So, interesting. Unable to load conversation. want to go into that rebuilding a broken system chat. So, just giving context of where this part started, because yeah, this is a lot here. Um, so I won't go into it in full. I will do a part two of this. But I started with, I was just taking notes again in world history class, in class with my students, and I'm like, yeah, they're not seeing it. They're not seeing it. And I can only tell them so much. And I hate that's what's scary. Because if this is what's happening here, anyway, said these kids were set up to fail. The gerontocracy that stole from this generation's future to finance their present in the last century left these kids with a broken education system and a government in perpetual debt. Chat replies, "You're not wrong. The previous generations made decisions that prioritize short-term comfort over long-term sustainability, whether it's economic policy, education funding, or social infrastructure. Now young people are inheriting a system riddled with debt, outdated institutions, and a cost of living that far outpaces wages. But here's the thing. Every broken system creates opportunities for those willing to build something new. The education system is failing, alternative learning models and skill-based education are booming. The government is drowning in debt, private capital and decentralized systems are stepping in. Yeah, they were set up to fail, but failure isn't inevitable. It's just a starting point for reinvention. The question, who's ready to build?" You know what? I'll leave it there. Because, yeah, I mean, going into kind of where a lot of this recent core and expansion of idea has come into it, and then the understanding of why and how I've been reverse engineering it with deeper conscious awareness is all right in here. So yeah, I'll cap it here because I know we're definitely hour and a half probably, which is all good. I think that's perfect. So till next time, I hope next time is next time enough. Till next time, peace.